All right, hello. Welcome to another week of the Drive Time with Hagerty. We're doing a half-hour podcast. I am Matt Lewis. I'm the social media guy for Hagerty. On my right here, Rob Sass. Rob?
Hi, Matt.
He is the publisher of Hagerty Classic Cars magazine.
That is true.
Perfect. And we've got Brian Raybold on my left here.
Hi, Matt.
Hello. And you publish the price guide, correct?
I'm actually the editor of Hagerty Price Guide, yes.
Perfect. And what appears to be an issue with the call, Stefan, is on the line. We'll hope to get him back here shortly. But we've got some news here. The Mecum auctions recently happened, just a couple weeks ago, right?
Yep. After something like 10 days of sales, it started while Barrett Jackson was selling cars in Arizona and ended afterwards. And they did about $66 million in sales, up 10% from last year and back on par with the strong 2013.
10 days. At that point, why don't you just make it a month-long sale? You know, I mean...
Between that and Indianapolis, they've got to be close.
They really do. That is truly amazing. 10 days, 2,500 cars offered.
Yeah, 2,513. They sold 66%?
They did? Yeah, it's outrageous. I mean, they couldn't... Well, we'll see if they try, but they probably couldn't squeeze any more cars through in a one-day or one venue.
Incredible. And they just missed the $1 million mark with their top sale, the 69 Dodge Daytona Hemi. What was the story with that?
Well, freshly restored car, good ownership history. Hemi, 4-speed, came from, among many other collectors, Otis Chandler owned it at one point.
Wow.
Oh.
And hit right in the estimate. I believe Mecum estimated 800 to $1 million was right in there.
Wow.
And reportedly, famous owner bought that car.
Yeah. Stefan, you've got something about the Daytona Hemi, don't you?
Yes, this comes straight from my wife via her Facebook news feed.
So it's true, 100%.
Yes, David Spade, star of Stage and Screen, and Joe Dirt, bought the car. I didn't know that he was a car guy, per se, but yeah.
Well, his character in Joe Dirt drove a pretty distressed version of this car, right?
Yeah, so he is stepping up, I suppose.
Yeah.
So do you suppose he'll apply the patina that was in Joe Dirt?
I hope not, because it's a really. Have you guys seen the car? It's a really cool color.
It is nice, yeah. Do you suppose he'll apply the mullet that he wore in Joe Dirt?
Possibly. Yeah, it's copper metallic. I don't know if I've seen too many cars, Daytona's that color.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And then a motorhome.
Yes.
Never seen that before. A motorhome breaks the top 10 at a sale.
And it's
$660,000 with premium. That's a pretty pricey motorhome.
Yeah, it's a 2006, so it's not new. Or probably even completely state of the art.
But it's a Prevost, which is kind of the Canadian gold standard of converted bus motorhomes, right?
Yep, yeah, it is. 54,000 miles, and it doesn't look like it had any sort of notable ownership. I mean, didn't belong to.
This was not like the Foreigner casino tour bus for the States. Probably perfect for that, though.
Yeah, maybe that's its next home.
Or maybe it's a little bit too nice.
But just a as these things are, just a gorgeous, fully equipped bus. But yeah, it's a lot of money for an RV, I'd say. But it's it's gorgeous.
And we're not the motorhome experts here. That seems high to me.
It does. But do you actually need a CDL to drive it? And you would know, Stefan, since I know you actually have a CDL.
With the bus, you might need that's a good question for one of those.
I'm willing to bet it passes the weight capacity.
That's a good question. I don't know.
I know it's at minimum a chauffeur's license.
Yeah, well, the next car on the list, though, I think is really interesting. The 65 Shelby GT350 at $489. I haven't followed the market that closely on these lately, but it strikes me that anything under $500,000 for a first-year GT350 is probably not a bad deal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Brian, what did
Yeah, Shelby's have been strong for the last year plus, and that sounds like a reasonable price without knowing much about the car.
Yeah, 65 is definitely what you want in terms of appreciation, right? In the first year.
65 for sure.
Yeah.
The Boss 9, right below it on the list, 467. That's a great price, strong price for that. They kind of bounce around a little bit, so that must have had great history. That's a good price, and they landed really well on a lot of the other muscle cars here.
Yeah, they sure did. I mean, to finish within about $20,000 of the Shelby GT350 for a Boss 429, that's a big deal.
That's impressive, especially as strong as all the Shelby's cars were for such a long time. It's nice to see the Bosses start to get that same respect.
Yeah. If you got to drive one of the two, though, which one,
Oh, I'd drive the Boss.
Would you really?
I would,
I
absolutely.
would drive the Shelby in a heartbeat. They're so nice to drive.
A weirdo, I guess. Whatever.
I mean, the Boss 429 is awesome in a straight line. I mean, that's fantastic. But if you actually want to go around a corner or do some braking, which I know you like to do from time to time, you want the GT350.
Yeah, I guess. But just from a sheer aesthetics and fun and noise and everything, 29 would do just fine in my book.
You've spent too much time around Davin lately.
That's
what's going on.
But it's a Ford. It can't be Davin.
That's true.
It can't be Davin's.
Yeah, but I mean, he's always going to go for the displacement.
You can't go wrong with either one, I think, is what it comes down to.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So, finally, I think what we need to look at is that Harley-Davidson.
Yeah, this was a really interesting bike, 1959. It's an FLH Duo Glide, owned by Jerry Lee Lewis for a very long time. And Mecum was out there talking about possibly this could break $1 million. Didn't quite get there. It sold at $385 with the premium. A lot of drama on stage for it. Apparently, Jerry Lee Lewis got up and sang "Great Balls of Fire," a couple bars of it.
Wow!
After it hammered sold, so definitely the highlight of the sale. One of the big deals, and that bike. I mean, without Jerry Lee Lewis history, worth a third of that probably. So
yeah. And as much as quite honestly, I'm more of a Jerry Lee Lewis fan than an Elvis fan. If this had been Elvis's bike, it may have made Dana Mecum's estimate, but the killer is not the king. That's what it boils down to.
And since you're a fan of Jerry Lee Lewis a little more, is there anything to him with Harleys? Like, is there any bigger connection than the fact that he was a star and he owned this car?
Just that he was a professional badass, and the whole Harley thing kind of fits that image. I mean, the guy married his 13-year-old cousin, was in trouble with the law. I think his cousin was Jimmy Swaggart, and those two, strangely enough, didn't really see eye to eye. But no, I mean, I think it's fitting with his image, but I don't know that he had any special connection to Harleys.
Yeah, it's always a question that comes up: does a celebrity make it, even if they're not, a career of promoting a motorcycle or a car?
Yeah, that's why Steve McQueen Ferrari is worth more than a John Lennon Ferrari. That sort of thing. Yeah, makes sense.
So, finally, we bring up the Ford GT. I can't help but comment on this because $330,000 is a 2006 Ford GT. Those things really went from used car to collector in a heartbeat.
They did. I haven't followed their depreciation curve, but it only lasted for a couple of years. In the last probably 4 years, they've just gone through the roof, and it's tough to find one below $200,000, and typically those have a lot of miles, and that's pretty rare for these cars because they were, although driven a lot by connoisseurs, not driven in the tens of thousands of miles range very often.
Do we know the colors of this one?
This was a yellow and black car, yellow with black stripes.
Black stripes.
Okay,
gotcha.
So it was a good-looking car.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it wasn't like
the Gulf Heritage edition or anything. Can we back up one car to the Countach? I sort of thought that was interesting. Countaches are on fire right now, but it seems like the newer they are, the less pricey they are. It seems like the real big money is being spent on the early LP 400 cars. Was this anybody other than the fact this was a later Countach? Was there any story on this car?
Not to my knowledge, but $385,000 for an '89 Countach. I mean,
It's 3 times what it would have sold for 3 years ago.
exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
those cars were just a little bit above 100 for a long time.
Yeah.
And they've just again, I think the earlier cars have pulled up the values on the newer cars, and those newer cars. I mean, you talk to younger enthusiasts, and they really like the exaggerated styling of the later cars in a lot of cases with the wing and the flares and everything.
Which is why we should really revisit the idea of all of us, getting 100 people here at Hagerty to put in basically $1,000 and buy a Diablo.
Just,
I mean, seriously, who are you in, Stefan?
Sure.
I mean, you
Yeah.
can't lose. I mean, at the risk of sounding like, Jordan Belfort, pushing some penny stock, your only regret is that you didn't buy 2 with a Diablo, but
yeah,
I digress.
exactly.
This was the 25th anniversary car, and but I can't remember the term that Brian used about younger collectors appreciating the whatever he used to describe the wearing.
Exaggerated, I guess.
Exaggerated. It's a you could call it exaggerated, or you could call it fussier. It's got the tacked on front bumper.
Like a bunch of like Testarossa-like side straight kind of vents too, if I remember. Yeah. Yeah. Not as pure.
So strong stuff, good cars. Changing gears a little bit, I only bring this up because we just got one, the second one that we'll get in Traverse City here, Hagerty's hometown. Alfa Romeo 4C Launch Edition showed up at the local dealership.
Really?
Yeah, it's there right now. And Rob,
Can we end this podcast a little bit early and
it screams.
It's somewhere to
head
be.
over to
Rob
Fox
says.
Fiat Alfa Romeo?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to drive that.
No, it's gorgeous. He let me start it up. It sounds fantastic. 4-cylinder, a small 4,
Yeah.
1.7, but 237 horse, and it's light.
And it's only got 2 pedals. So, Brian, I'm not going to say it.
No, that was rude.
Weren't there? Is there still a connection between this car and the 2016 Miata?
No.
I don't believe there is.
There was supposed to be. There were rumors of a connection for a while. They would share platforms.
Yeah, not this car. It was supposed to share a platform with the new Alfa Spider that everybody said was going to be called the Alfa Duetto. Sergio Marchionne said that no, we're not going to do that. We're gonna, Alfa really needs to be more bespoke than that. The rumor is that co-developed platform is going to show up as a Fiat Spider. So the Miata is going to be a Fiat, not an Alfa, if it happens.
Gotcha.
Still kind of neat to see a new Fiat Spider come to the States.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I would be into that. So this Alpha 4C, 500 of them they're going to make in the year.
What makes it the launch edition?
The launch edition, there's some
It
additional...
can go to the moon.
Right. Right. It drives vertically.
Yeah, get to the moon. If anybody's gotten 250,000 miles out of an Alfa Romeo before, I want them to call me. So,
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen.
The launch edition gets a little bit different body styling. There's some extra vents up in the front bumper, which actually really kind of set off the front of it, having looked at the standard edition. There's some additional carbon fiber. You get a nice number plate. The stitching matches the exterior color on the leather. So it's a lot of little kind of hints that it's not the standard car, but otherwise it doesn't perform any better. Yeah. It's just a cooler limited edition.
Limited edition looks good.
With some extra stuff.
The biggest hint that it's not a normal car would probably be the second sticker, the additional markup on it. That's probably the biggest
a little, yeah, but it's still not crazy. I mean, you're in the 60s, 60,000 range for a rear engine, rear wheel drive, sequential trans.
And the regular car can be bought in the 50s, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
How do we feel about the styling?
I like it.
I like it.
I like it. I think it's cool. The sort of like eight-eyed spider kind of headlight thing. I'm maybe not so wild about, but I think it's pretty cool. I mean, it reminds me, kind of a Lotus Elise. Like an an Italianized Lotus Elise in some ways.
It does.
It is very Italian. Yeah.
I really feel like it ticks a lot of the boxes that I like to look at when I think about a future collector, though. Mm-hmm. The performance is there, the limited edition is there, the high technology is there, you've got the styling, the performance, like it all just lines up, in my opinion.
It is cool. We saw the Spider version at the Detroit Auto Show a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
They were showing a yellow one, and you know, it's one of those cars, and it's not just an Italian car thing. To me, the 4C really looks good in red. I wasn't that wild about it in yellow.
Well, you'll be happy because the one here in town is red.
There you go.
It is an awesome looking car.
Do you know if all the launch editions are red?
No.
Okay.
I don't believe they are. I did not see anything to indicate that every launch edition would be red.
Gotcha.
I thought all Italian cars were red.
Yeah. No, I know somebody with a blue Ferrari.
Who? What? Who would be stupid enough to buy a blue Ferrari? Seriously.
I couldn't tell you.
Me either. I have no idea. But no, I mean, there's sort of a bigger, broader issue with Alfa Romeo. I mean, this is, you know, Alfa Romeo said they came back with the 8C, and that was, like 6 or 7 years ago, and that really wasn't a re-entry into the U.S. market. It was sort of a one-time deal. You know, and they left here in 1995. Yeah. You know, it's good to have them back.
I like it. I don't know. I like the idea of having extra options and being able to get a really, in the grand scheme of things, unique car for the area. There's not going to be a ton of Alphas on the road. And speaking to the salesman, and he's not the almighty expert on Alphas, but he was saying that, you know, over the next couple of years, we'll be getting more of their entry-level cars.
Yeah, and that's what Sergio Marchionne said. They're supposed to, sometime in June, I think, introduce like a 3 Series competitor. But, you know, since Saab went away, the quirky cars, I mean, that was really the last quirky car. I mean, Peugeot went away in 1991, Alfa went away in 95, Fiat was gone in 1983. I mean, sort of your choice of oddball cars in the U.S. has been dwindling. Yeah. I think Citroën went away sometime in the 1970s. So I think it's good to have them back. I think that they can, you know, there's actually a niche to be exploited if they wind up being priced somewhere in between, you know, your average VW and your average Audi.
Right, for sure. Especially with like the Giulietta and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
If they can get it right in that sweet spot. I don't know. I like weird cars. I like different.
I do too. You know, I mean, the thing to do here is, I mean, I like the whole Italianist. You know, it's like just, you know, you dump it when the warranty expires and the lease is up. Nobody gets hurt. Right. Except for the second owner.
Yeah, and, you know, it may not be the next Ford GT, but I don't see it being a Ford Focus either.
I don't either. So, you know, happy to have Alfa back. I personally, I almost teared up when I saw the Serpent and Cross sign go up at the dealer in town. So I hope they do well.
Yeah, it was exciting, and it was fun to see it. It was front and center in the dealership.
Yeah, and we have to be the smallest market in the U.S. to have a Fiat and an Alfa store. I mean,
yes.
Traverse City, Michigan. You know, your own population is about like 15,000 people.
Something.
We got a Fiat and an Alfa dealer.
And the really interesting thing is we've got 2 of the 500 launch editions came through that dealership.
It's amazing. We probably got more than they got in Portland, Oregon, Stefan.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
Quite possibly.
You know,
so if you're wondering where they are,
they're
one's
here
in Missouri.
I have not seen any here. That's for sure.
Did Ron Tonkin get the Alfa dealership in Portland?
Probably, but Ron Tonkin, the Gran Turismo dealership has moved. They left Portland and went down to Wilsonville. There's an entire luxury car complex cropping up down there.
Well, they were in kind of a sketchy part of Portland, weren't they, for a while? I mean,
well, it's where I live. I mean, it's not.
So yes,
I know. I'm joking. It's like around the corner from your house.
So finally, again, going back to our classics, we've got a new buyer's guide coming up, 1975 MGB GT. This is the Jubilee Special Edition. This is one our guys actually filmed over in the UK with the Hagerty UK team. We've got insurance guys over there as well doing their thing. And really kind of a cool little car, they talked.
Yeah, and I just actually watched it a few minutes ago, done with Danny Hopkins, the editor of Practical Classics magazine from the UK. So, you know, British car, genuine British dude talking about it. I mean, he's incredibly knowledgeable, and it's a really, really good buyer's guide. So if you're at all interested in ever buying an MGB, it's worth a watch.
Yeah, and I was reading a little bit about the Jubilee edition, and I don't know if this is 100% true, but it's the truth that I like to believe. During that time frame, the gasoline was getting expensive, sparse, whatever you want to call it. They had a bunch of V8 wheels left over in a warehouse, so they decided to make this Jubilee edition with the smaller engine. The V8 wheels give it some gold stickers, some gold badges, and a number plate, and call it the Jubilee just to get rid of their V8 wheels.
I believe that is absolutely 100% true, because it does have, I've heard that story before, and it does have the steel styled wheels that you'd see on an MGB V8. But it's kind of an interesting piece, because it's an MGB GT that we never saw the V8 here, which is a shame, because it would have been a fantastic car. It was a great car. But this one it's like a 75 or a 76 BGT. We stopped getting them in 1974. We got a couple of the rubber bumper versions of it. Then they stopped importing it, because who in their right mind would buy an MGB GT when you could buy a Datsun 240Z for less money? It just totally blew that car out of the water here. But they sold it in Britain up until 1980, I believe, when the MGB ended.
Well, nonetheless, great video that we've got up there, worth a watch. Really, if you're buying any British car, they've got a lot of good information on how to check for a few different things. We've got plenty of buyer's guides up, but this one's going to be the newest, and you can expect to see it in the Hagerty newsletter that's coming out on Wednesday, which this will be attached to. So,
open the newsletter.
Right. Subscribe if you haven't, Hagerty.com. You can find your newsletter subscription. You get a weekly little bout of classic car news.
Excellent.
Terrific. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. If you have questions or comments, you can leave them down in the comment section in the YouTube video, or tweet at Hagerty, and we'll get them answered for you. Thanks.